May I introduce myself? I'm Vincent Price. In just a minute, I'll show you the only really haunted house in the world.
That's right, and we're coming along, because on this episode of The Last Wanderer of Mars, we will be paying homage to that 1959 classic, House on Haunted Hill. Especially since this year marks the 62nd anniversary of this horror classic. Now listen, before watching any further, if you've seen House on Haunted Hill before, this would be a great one because I'm going to go into all kinds of things. However, but if you've not seen this 59 classic, go watch it first because spoilers are ahead. Massive amounts of spoilers are ahead. So there we go, as we wander into House on Haunted Hill. Released in February 1959, House on Haunted Hill was produced and directed by William Castle, who would become the producer and director of such B-movie horror classics as The Tingler, Macabre, 13 Ghosts, and of course, House on Haunted Hill was born in 1914. He became orphaned when he was only 11 years old and then dropped out of high school when he was 15 to work in the theater. Castle had a talent for promoting, prompting Columbia Studios to hire him. Later he would use these promotional skills to promote his own films, using the gimmicks that would become the trademark for which he was known. Now when I say gimmicks, I'm actually talking about real physical gimmicks. Things that would be done in the theater. For example, when he brought out the movie The Tingler, there was one part in that film where the screen goes black. They announced that the Tingler has gotten loose in the audience, and of course the only way that you could kill the Tingler was by screaming. So in order to make sure everybody did, they rigged certain seats in the theater to give people a mild electric shock. So it's like the Tingler's loose in the theater, you got this mild shock, and people screaming their heads off. For House on Haunted Hill, he filmed it in something called Emergo, which was like it was going to emerge into the screen. And what would happen is in a certain scene, when a skeleton would appear, it would not only just rise up, but actually rise up and then fly off the screen and over the heads of the people in the audience. And of course, this was at select theaters. By the time I got to see it at the Grand Theater in Torrance, they weren't showing it at Emergo, but this was one of the big gimmicks he did. I think one of my favorites, though, was the one for 13 Ghosts.
When you came in, you were given a special ghost viewer like this. And here's how it works. You must only use it when the screen changes to this kind of a bluish color. Then you raise the viewer to your eyes and you look at the screen through it. If you believe in ghosts, you look through the red part of the viewer. If you do not believe in ghosts, you look through the blue part. Now, when the screen resumes its normal color, like this, remove the viewer from in front of your eyes until the next time the screen becomes blue.
Now, it's said that Castle always dreamed of being an A-list director, but all he really managed to do in his entire career was produce and direct these B movies. But he always dreamed of one, and I think probably, according to the critics, House on Haunted Hill was the closest he got to that A-list film. Now, Castle worked for a lot of his films with another guy named Rob White. Rob White was the writer of most of those other films like Macabre, 13 Ghosts, I know that he wrote as well, and he also wrote House on Haunted Hill. Now, White was also the executive producer of House on Haunted Hill, too. And I think one of the reasons is that he claimed that House on Haunted Hill was the one script that he was actually proud of. And it does hold up pretty well. The premise of House on Haunted Hill is probably what drew most of the people into it. And you have to ask yourself, after listening to this, would you be there too? Now, House on Haunted Hill starred Vincent Price, who of course was a horror icon at the time. So let's let Vincent Price describe in his own words what you're about to witness.
I'm Frederick Lauren, and I've rented the house on Haunted Hill tonight so that my wife can give a party. A haunted house party. She's so amusing. There'll be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited. If any of you will spend the next 12 hours in this house, I'll give you each $10,000, or your next of kin in case you don't survive. Ah, but here come our other guests.
All right, so now we have the premise. It's a party for 5 people who are being charged to stay in a haunted house all night long. All right, but there's 2 pivotal scenes that come next that really set up what's going on, because House of Haunted Hill wasn't just a horror film, it's also a mystery. So, these 2 scenes set up the idea of why the people are there and who they may or may not be. Watch.
Dust and dirt everywhere, and the water barely trickles. Couldn't you have had the place cleaned?
Atmosphere, darling, you know how ghosts are. They never tidy up. And that's a very fetching outfit, but hardly suitable for a party.
I'm not going to the party.
This spend-the-night ghost party was your idea, remember? Since it's going to cost me $50,000, I want you to have fun.
The party was my idea until you invited all the guests. Are we all strangers to each other? Don't you 2 know each other?
I'm afraid I don't even know your name.
I'm Nora Manning.
Lance Schroeder.
Is Frederick Lauren a friend of yours?
I've heard of him, but I've never met him.
I work for one of his companies, but I've never seen him.
I've never met the man either. Just a phone call. Do you know him? We're only strangers. We're none of our friends.
Friends? Do we have any friends?
No, your jealousy took care of that.
I had a reason for inviting each guest. I wanted kind of a cross-section. From psychiatrist to typist, and from drunk to jet pilot. They share one thing. They all need money. Now let's see if they're brave enough to earn it.
And you call this a party?
Could be.
Okay, now so far, there's no indication that any of these people knew each other in advance to getting the invitation to the party. But, as we'll see further on, that's not true. Now, while the others involved in this might question why they're there at the party at all, the one thing they don't question is the house itself.
Well, if I were going to haunt anybody, this would certainly be the house I'd do it in.
I agree with Lance. It is a very strange house. Now, when I was a kid, first watching this flick, I wondered if the house was real or just a set. And if it actually did exist, I wondered where it was. Well, here's the answer. On the West Coast, Southern California, Los Angeles, Los Feliz, just south of the Griffith Observatory and the Hollywood sign in the Hollywood Hills, is the Ennis House. House on Haunted Hill. Built in a distinctive design of interlocking concrete blocks, in a style sometimes called Mayan Revival, this 1924 structure was the brainchild of legendary architect Frank Lloyd Wright, who designed it in 1923 for a rich couple named Charles and Mabel Ennis. In case you were intrigued, as I was, by the perforated and patterned blocks that make up the walls, they were supposedly inspired by the symmetrical reliefs of PUUC code architecture in Uzumal, Mexico. A PUUC code, by the way, was a method the Mayans used between 1000 and 500 BC to create a secret language, which only now scholars are beginning to decipher. How's that for adding a little touch of mystery to the house on Haunted Hill?
This is what she used on my brother and her sister. Hacked them to pieces. We found parts of the bodies all over the house, in places you wouldn't think. The funny thing is, the heads have never been found. Hands and feet and things like that. But no heads.
The wife, probably in a rage, threatened her husband with a knife and then, carried away by hysteria, took a swing at him and simply went on from there.
She certainly went on. How many people did she kill, Mr. Pritchard?
Only two. Her husband and her sister. No one else was here.
So there are two loose heads just floating around in here somewhere?
You can hear them at night. They whisper to each other and then cry.
Now, I've always really liked this scene. This is where the psychiatrist questions Frederick Lawrence about why he's throwing the party, as if he doesn't know. Listen.
I'm interested in your reasons for this, party. Aside from pleasant company.
Ghosts, Doctor. I think everyone wonders what they would do if they saw a ghost.
Are you finished? Yes. Everybody wonders what would happen if they saw a ghost.
The ghosts are coming closer, Mr. Lauren.
You really believe in your pet ghost, don't you, Pritchard?
Before the night's over, you will too.
Okay, so far, especially according to Pritchard, this could be a straightforward ghost story. But it's not. It's also a mystery. More specifically, a murder mystery. Now, so far, Nora has nearly gotten squashed by a falling chandelier. Lance has been knocked senseless in the dark. Nora has seen a ghost, but nobody believes her. Annabelle has warned Nora she's in danger, and she's asked Lance for help in case an insanely jealous Frederick tries to kill her. Nora finds one of the disembodied heads in her suitcase, and then is nearly strangled by a stranger in the hallway. Lance finds the head in Nora's closet, but before he can confront anybody about it, he and David Trent find Annabelle hanging in the stairwell. The doctor and the others don't think it was suicide. They think Frederick murdered his wife. All except Pritchard, of course. Even though he's drunk as hell, he says it was the ghosts. Now, most of the ghostly shenanigans have been played on Nora, almost as if someone's trying to gaslight her. In fact, one of my favorite scenes is this one.
Just go look in my suitcase. Just go look. But it was in there. A woman's head.
Nora, I think you're a little upset. Would you care for a sedative?
Get out! Get out, all of you! All of you, get out of here and leave me alone! Just get out of here!
Would you like a sedative? You'll notice she just goes ballistic. I love that scene. Would you care for a sedative? Now, before Annabelle shuffled off to the great by and by, she armed everyone with pistols right after the caretakers left, locking everyone inside. Everyone agreed to stay in the room till morning, but Nora is visited by Annabelle's ghost, hovering outside and in the hallway. She's almost grabbed by a monster. Then she freaks out by an organ playing itself. Meanwhile, upstairs, while all this is going on,
An admission of guilt, Doctor?
Certainly not. There's either somebody else in this house or one of us has left his room. Did you hear anything?
Organ music?
That, and someone walking.
you could hear walking, but you couldn't hear some girl screaming her brains out?
You got yours? Ready?
You look downstairs, and I'll look up here.
Why not together?
There may be only minutes, seconds left of someone's life. Why waste time?
All right, now here comes the shocking plot twist that you never would have expected.
We've done it. A perfect crime. Beautiful.
Has she killed him?
Not yet, but she will.
Get me out of this hanging harness. What's taking that girl so long? What time is it?
At first, I couldn't get Nora to want to protect herself with a gun. But after you appeared at the window, everything began to work just as we had planned. You were wonderful. Just the touch that finally drove her into complete hysteria.
It'll be worth all of our planning, darling. Where's Nora now? What's happening?
On her way to the cellar. So scared she'll shoot the first thing that moves.
And Frederick?
On his way to the cellar, too.
David, are you sure none of them will suspect us?
Of what? An hysterical girl accidentally shoots somebody? Who would suspect that we planned it that way, that we drove her to it?
What about my suicide?
But just a ghost party gag. We'll claim it was a dummy since I'm the only one who touched you.
And the caretakers?
Well, they had no idea what they were really doing.
What about Nora? She's not stupid, you know.
Darling, believe me, everything we planned is working perfectly. Nora is sure Frederick murdered you. She thinks Frederick attacked her in the cellar, not me. And now Nora's almost out of her mind with fear. The heads, the music, you're hanging. I tell you, when Frederick walks in there, she'll shoot him.
Now downstairs, just as predicted, now, here's where everything falls apart, in my opinion. And now it's time for Frederick's Revenge.
At last you've got it all. Everything I have. Even my life. But you're not going to live to enjoy it. Come with me, murderess. Come with me. The crime you two planned was indeed perfect. Only the victim is alive and the murderers are not. It's a pity you didn't know when you started your game of murder that I was playing too.
And now, the shocking reveal to all the other guests at the party.
It's him. He's alive.
You didn't shoot anyone, my dear. I loaded your gun with blanks. I can tell you all now. Trent and my wife were planning to kill me. They failed. Trent tried to throw me in the vat. My wife stumbled and fell. I'm ready for justice to decide if I'm innocent or guilty.
Well, all right. This is all well and good. But Rob White's script has left more plot holes than you could drive a truck through. Now, you could possibly explain away how David Trent and Nora Manning got invited to the party in the first place, since, at the very beginning, Frederick says his selection was totally random. Couldn't have been, however, because he had to have known that David Trent was his wife's secret lover, and he also had to know that the two of them were manipulating Nora Manning.
Would you care for a sedative?
Into becoming a murderer. However, the fact that she didn't know either one of them kind of complicates the plot. But the one hole that is really gigantic is simply this. Why in the world would David Trent have tried to throw Frederick into the vat of acid? What was the point, if their motivation in the first place was simply prove that a terrified, hysterical girl accidentally shot Frederick? Why would he want to throw him into the acid? Because all that would have done was just implicate himself in the murder. When the police came and investigated later, they would have wondered how he got into that vat of acid in the first place, because Nora couldn't have put him in there. She wouldn't have had the strength, plus she was terrified. She would have absolutely denied it. And Trent's fingerprints would have been all over the wheel that opened it up. And yet, The very fact that he tried to throw him in the vat is what gave Frederick the opportunity to throw Trent in the vat and then retrieve his skeleton to frighten his wife. And while we're talking about the skeleton, are we really supposed to believe that Frederick had the time to retrieve those bones and hook it up to a marionette controller so that he could actually frighten his wife into jumping into the vat herself? Oh well, it's just a movie. By the premise, by the bit. Or in Pritchard's words,
now there are 9. There'll be more, many more. They're coming for me now. And then they'll come for you.
now, if I were to produce a Marvel scene ending for House on Haunted Hill, it would be this. Ruth Bridges and Lance Schroeder are together in a car returning home. So how much did he offer you? $500,000, same as you. So I imagine your testimony will be the same as mine too? Of course, and it will be in my column too, that was the deal. Well, at least it gets Nora off the hook. And I have no sympathy for those other two, as far as I'm concerned. They got what they deserved. It's funny though, when I met Annabelle, she said he thought big money like his could get away with anything. I guess she was right, wasn't she? If you liked what you've just seen, leave me a comment below. I'd love to know what you think. And please, like us. And share this episode with someone you think might enjoy it too. And remember, for more wanderings, don't forget to subscribe. Smoking rockets, Commander. You mean they haven't subscribed already? And when you subscribe, don't forget to ring that little bell to receive notifications of upcoming shows. Subscribe to The Last Wanderer of Mars.